Right now, everyone in the audience is hyper-focused on the terrifying stalker situation surrounding Trina. The prevailing theory across the fandom is that Simon, Quinn, or perhaps some entirely new, random character is the one creeping in the dark, watching her every single move. But if you ask me, that is entirely too simple for a show that thrives on complex, multi-generational trauma and shocking resurrection. I have a completely new theory about the identity of the person stalking Trina, and if this hypothesis holds true, then every single speculation we have had up until this point has been nothing more than a brilliant, orchestrated misdirection by the writers. I do not believe the person physically following Trina is Simon. I do not believe it is Quinn. I believe the man hiding in the shadows, executing these terrifying surveillance tactics, is actually Dex. Yes, you heard me right. I am predicting that Dex is not dead. I think his supposed demise was nothing more than a meticulously crafted theatrical illusion staged in the chaotic aftermath of the plot designed by the late Cyrus. In the moment when the entire town was led to believe that Dex had tragically lost his life, someone else was watching. Someone else stepped into the wreckage and secretly pulled him from the brink of death. That someone, according to my theory, is Simon. Let us break down the psychology of how this would actually work, because this is where it gets interesting. I believe Simon found Dex in a state of absolute vulnerability, hovering between life and death. By saving his life, Simon did not just perform an act of mercy. He essentially bought a human soul. He took a broken man and secretly molded him into his ultimate, fiercely loyal right hand. Since that fateful night, Dex has been operating entirely off the grid, existing as a ghost in the very town he used to call home. He executes every single one of Simon's commands with lethal precision, ensuring that absolutely no one realizes he is still drawing breath. Dex has become the perfect weapon because a dead man leaves no footprints and a ghost cannot be interrogated. Now, we have to examine Simon and his deeply disturbing psychological state, particularly his fixation on Trina. When Simon returned to town, the dynamic shifted in a horrifying way. I think Simon has gradually developed intense feelings for Trina, but we need to be very clear about what kind of feelings these are. This is not a normal, healthy, romantic attraction. This is a dark, consuming, and deeply psychotic obsession. Simon looks at Trina and does not see a partner. He sees a pristine possession, a prize that belongs exclusively to him by some twisted divine right. He views anyone who brings a smile to her face not as a friend, but as a direct threat to his absolute ownership of her future. Initially, Simon completely misunderstood the landscape of Trina's life. He looked at her dynamic with Gio and immediately assumed Gio was the boyfriend. Gio, with his musical talent and deep emotional connection to Trina, naturally became the biggest obstacle in Simon's mind. But then the situation escalated and the narrative shifted. Simon, watching from his sterile distance through the eyes of his ghost, suddenly witnessed Trina spending time with Kai. From Simon's deeply paranoid perspective, Trina does not just have Gio, she also has Kai. He likely believes that both of these men are actively conquering the heart that he has claimed for himself. This sensory overload of jealousy would push a man like Simon completely over the edge, causing his obsession to spiral into violent, uncontrollable rage. Because of this perceived two-front war for Trina's affection, I predict Simon is going to issue a devastatingly cruel and ruthless order. He will command Dex to permanently eliminate both Kai and Gio. Simon does not want to merely scare them away. He wants to eradicate them from the earth, ending all romantic competition in one swift, bloody masterstroke. If this command is given, I truly believe Dex will feel he has absolutely no choice but to obey. He will silently approach his targets, slipping through the night with the cold, detached efficiency of a professional assassin who has long surrendered his own free will. I need to pause for a second and actually argue with myself on this point, because I know what many of you are screaming at your screens right now. Would Dex really do this? We have seen Dex struggle with his moral compass. We have watched him agonize over the violent realities of his past life. Would a man who once showed such profound humanity actually cross the line into cold-blooded, unprovoked murder just because Simon told him to? Part of me desperately wants to say no. Part of me wants to believe that Dex would turn the gun on Simon rather than hurt innocent people. But if we truly analyze the psychology of a man who was left for dead, betrayed by the world, and then resurrected by a savior who demands absolute, unquestioning loyalty, it makes a terrifying amount of sense. Dex owes Simon his life. In his traumatized, isolated state, Simon is his only anchor to reality. When a ghost is told to haunt, it haunts. Dex's moral compass was likely shattered the night he supposedly died, replaced entirely by a trauma bond that forces him to serve his master. So, assuming Dex follows through, I believe Kai will be the first tragic victim. The show has already planted a brilliant, chilling visual metaphor for this exact event. Think back to the moment when Kai's image was mysteriously erased from the photograph of Trina. That was not just a creepy editing trick to build suspense. It was a literal foreshadowing of his fate. A photograph captures a moment in time, proving someone existed. Erasing Kai from the photo is a grim warning that he is about to be erased from Trina's life and from the world in the most permanent way possible. Kai will likely be murdered in a sudden, brutal ambush, serving as the first blood spilled in Simon's psychotic quest for love. Once Kai is permanently removed from the board, the crosshairs will inevitably lock on to Gio. Gio is a completely different kind of target, which makes this impending clash so incredibly tragic. Gio is a musician, a young man whose hands are meant to create beauty, melody, and emotion. He is completely unprepared for the sheer brutal violence of a trained operative like Dex. I can vividly imagine how this sequence will play out on our screen. Gio will be walking alone, perhaps late at night after a performance, entirely unaware that the shadows around him are alive and breathing. Dex will strike with overwhelming force, launching a relentless ambush that leaves Gio severely and critically injured. The tension in this hypothetical scene would be absolutely suffocating. Picture Dex standing over a broken, bleeding Gio, his weapon raised, just mere seconds away from delivering the final, fatal blow that will end Gio's life just as he ended Kai's. Simon's horrifying master plan is literally moments away from total, irreversible success. Trina is about to lose another light in her life, plunging her back into the darkness she has fought so hard to escape. But this is exactly where I believe the writers are going to deliver the most monumental, earth-shattering shock of the entire year. Right at that impossible moment, when all hope is completely lost, and Gio is taking what he believes to be his final breath, a mysterious figure will violently emerge from the darkness. This figure will attack Dex from behind, disarming him and forcing the assassin to halt his deadly mission. The identity of the savior will likely be kept hidden in the shadows for a brief, agonizing moment, teasing the audience. But I am willing to bet everything that this mysterious savior is none other than Spencer. If you have been a longtime viewer and have listened to our previous discussions, you know I have never, ever bought into the idea that Spencer was truly gone forever. A character with that much legacy, that much unresolved narrative weight, does not simply vanish into the ether. If Spencer is indeed secretly alive, and has been quietly waiting for the right moment to return to Port Charles, this is the absolute perfect, most poetic way to orchestrate his highly anticipated comeback. Spencer stepping out of the shadows to save Gio, a man who has been bringing joy and comfort to the woman Spencer loves, shows a profound level of maturity and heroism. By intervening in this brutal assassination attempt, Spencer does not just save a life. He inadvertently throws a massive wrench into Simon's entire psychotic design. Simon thought he was playing a game of chess against unsuspecting pawns, but he is about to realize he is facing a king who has returned from the grave. Spencer's sudden reappearance will immediately open up a thrilling new front in this war. It will inevitably lead to a high-stakes confrontation with the ghostly assassin Dex, and it will slowly begin to unravel the massive, bloody conspiracy that Simon has been carefully hiding behind his charming facade all this time. Of course, we have to acknowledge that this is entirely my own speculative theory. The writers could easily take a much safer, more predictable route. But if the narrative actually unfolds in this specific direction, the story of Trina's mysterious stalker transcends the typical repetitive soap opera tropes. It stops being a simple tale of a creepy guy in the bushes and evolves into a massive, organized conspiracy of murder, psychological manipulation, and resurrection. It positions Simon as an elite, terrifying mastermind, transforms Dex into a tragic, lethal instrument of death, marks Kai as the heartbreaking first casualty, and sets the stage for Spencer to reclaim his legacy as the ultimate protector. This scenario gives every single character involved a profound, deeply emotional purpose. It ties the sins of the past, like the fallout from Cyrus, directly into the terror of the present. But it also leaves us with one incredibly haunting question to ponder as we wait for the next episode. If Spencer has officially returned from the dead, and the ghost of Dex is finally exposed to the light of day, what on earth will a cornered, psychopathic Simon do next when he realizes his ultimate perfect prize is slipping through his fingers forever? The fallout from this single night in the alleyway would shatter the foundation of the entire town. And honestly, I cannot wait to see if we are right. Let me know what you guys think, and keep your eyes on the shadows.
Goodbye. Please like, subscribe, and comment on the GH Spoilers Daily channel.